We'll continue to work with our animation settings to build out something a little bit different. Let me show you what the final project is going to look like. Here's what we'll be creating. As you can see, the images are going to fade in and then they're going to move to different parts of the screen. All of the images have been scaled down so that I can fit 9 images into the sequence. This allows me to get kind of creative, and this is pretty easy to do. And in addition, you can do this with still images or video files. Okay, let's go ahead and build this out. I've already created a new sequence that we'll be working on. I did want to show you the sequence settings that I'm using. I'm using a standard 1080p size and 30 frames per second. What we'll do to start off with is we're going to park our playback head at the beginning of the project, and we're simply going to add our still images into the project. I'll go ahead and open up my stills bin. I'm going to click tilde so I can expand this. Now I'll select the images in the order that I want them to appear in my project. I'm going to hold down my Command or Control key so that I can select out of sequential order. Now that I have my images selected, I'm going to hit the tilde key to collapse my still image bin. Now what I'll do is I'll simply drag from this still bin to my timeline. It's going to add the items to the timeline in sequential order. As we've discussed, many of the images are much larger than my sequence settings. So I will select all of the images, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to scale to frame size. This will reduce all of the image sizes so that they fit within the sequence. Now that I have the images set up like this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to modify this and create more of a grid type of layout. Now, because my images came in for a default time of 5 seconds, I am going to reduce the time that they stay on the screen for this particular example. In order to change all of these at once, I'm going to make sure they're all selected. I'll right click and we're going to go to speed duration. This will allow us to change the default duration. So I'm going to change this from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. We'll click OK. And now all of the images have been reduced down to 3 seconds. We do have gaps, which isn't a big deal because we're going to ultimately be putting each of these elements on their own particular video layer. So as we work through this, we'll be moving everything. Let's start off by working on the first video element. I'm going to select this video element. We'll go to the Effect panel, and I'm going to open that by going to Window, Effect Controls, and what we're going to do is we're going to scale this element down. I'm going to scale it down by 30%. This is going to scale it and place it right in the middle of the timeline. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to have this image start off in the middle, and we're going to have the image fade onto the screen. So the fade is going to happen in approximately 15 frames. We'll go ahead and we'll just type 15 to jump to 15 frames. And let's zoom in a little bit on our timeline. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add an opacity keyframe. So I'll set my keyframe setting. I'm going to move my playback head back to the beginning and we'll reduce the opacity setting to 0. This will allow the image to fade in over half a second. Once the image has faded in, we're going to go ahead and wait till 1 second, and then the image is going to move up to the upper left-hand corner. In order to do that, we're going to animate position. So I'll go ahead and turn on keyframing for position. Because my playback head is at 1 second, the first keyframe for position is set at 1 second. We'll go ahead and we'll move our playback head 15 frames ahead, so I can just type 115, which is going to move my playback head to 1.5 seconds. And now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the numeric values for the X and the Y settings. This first image is going to be placed at 350 for X and 200 for Y. This is going to place it in the upper left-hand corner. So if we play our animation, you can see that the image is going to fade in, and then it'll move up to the upper left-hand corner. That's going to be perfect. Let's go to the first image, and let's go ahead and let's right-click and select Copy. Then we're going to come to the second image and we'll select the image. Now previously we had gone to the motion area and we copied the effects and then pasted on. It would only paste on the motion settings, but because we added an effect of opacity and of motion, we want to place both of those on this image. So with this image selected, I'm going to right click and I'm going to choose Paste Attributes. This will paste all of the attributes that we choose. We'll click OK, and as you can see, the keyframes have been specified, and if we play through, we'll see our first image fade in and move, and then the second image is going to fade in and move. Now, for this second image, I don't want it to move to the upper left-hand corner, but rather I want it to move to the lower right-hand corner. So I'm going to move to my ending keyframe. And if you use these little arrows, you can jump to the keyframes that you've already specified. And then we'll go ahead and change the position values. The position values that I'm going to use are going to be 570 by 885. And I'm going to extend the visibility of the first image so that it remains on screen. If we go ahead and rewind and play, you'll see the first image fades in and moves, and then shortly thereafter, the second image is going to fade in and move as well. This is looking good. We're going to continue to do this throughout our project. So I'm going to move my playback head to the end of the second image. I'll grab the third image and place it at location. We're going to right click and choose to paste attributes. And once again, we're going to paste the same attributes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come to that second position keyframe and we'll alter the values. For this one, I'm going to use 1570 by 200. Now I've already gone ahead and determined where these values will be. The reason that I'm choosing these particular values is because I ultimately want to create a grid of 9 images that pretty much fill the space. Let's go ahead and continue to work. All of the subsequent images are going to need to extend their visibility. They'll just remain on screen. So I'll go through and I'll continue to work in this way, pasting the attributes that we've already specified and going to my ending keyframe and setting the parameters for position. This fourth image is going to be 350 for X and 885 for Y. Again, I'm going to select the remaining images that we have and extend their visibility. Every time I drag a new still image up above, it's going to create a new video track, which is exactly what we want. Because we're not working with audio, I'm going to drag the audio tracks down so we have more real estate for the video tracks. And we'll continue to build this as we just did. So pasting the attributes, and then adjusting the position settings for those particular images. The fifth image is going to be at 960 by 200. My sixth image is at 960 by 885. The seventh image is at 350 by 540. My eighth image is at 1570 by 540. And finally, for the last image, this is going to remain in the center. So I'll paste in the attributes, except I'm not going to go ahead and paste in any motion attributes, since this will simply fade in. Because I did not paste in motion, we didn't get our scaling, but the scaling should just be 30%. And as you can see, I now have a grid of images. So let's play from the beginning. The images are all going to appear, and then they're going to move to their respective locations. If you don't like the timing on this, all you have to do is shorten up the spacing between the images. So we can easily do that by dragging each image over to the left for a specified amount. But for our purposes here, I think this works okay. As you can see, you can really get creative with using still images. It also is worth mentioning that these don't have to be still images. We could do the same exact thing with a video-based file. So if I go into my video bin, and if I grab one of the video files, we can do the same sort of thing here. So if I wanted to, I could scale this. I could go ahead and set keyframes for any of these particular properties. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn on our position keyframes. If I wanted to move this down the way, I simply move my playback head, and then I can go ahead and make modifications to these settings. And this image is not going to only play because it's a video-based image, but it's also going to move and do any other properties that we've animated. Clearly, this is a great way that you can enhance a project, especially if you wanted to create a tile of images and or video files that you wanted to play simultaneously. I hope you enjoy learning about animating still images and how you can get creative in Premiere by doing all sorts of interesting types of things.